backswing is absolutely key to finding some consistency in your move. And this is a journey that I've gone on very recently, and today I'm going to talk you through exactly what I did to improve my backswing position. I'm going to talk you through the drills that I did, the checkpoints that I went through, and I'm going to show you the before and after of my move and the difference it's made to my game. So if you're struggling with your backswing, this is the video for you. I'm going to take you from the start point of checking all the way through to actually making these changes stick. And let me show you some drills that you can do on the driving range to improve this and integrate it even further. So if you're struggling with the backswing, you're in the right place. Let's get cracking with today's video. So the backswing is complicated and there is no perfect position that's going to cover everyone. There are so many factors that are going to depend on what your perfect position are. But there's a few things that I learned in my journey that I definitely think are going to help you on yours, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So a little bit of background into my move. My move had a very strong club face pretty much all the way through, right? So I'll show you from this camera down the line here. I had pretty strong grip coming across, and this is all the way through the back. These wedges all the way through to the driver. And from this strong club face position at the start, I would basically keep this thing shut all the way back. I would bring it back a little bit on the inside, and I'd have this thing pointing almost down towards the ground. By the time I took this thing up to the top, it was still super shut, and it was just causing me a lot of problems later on the downswing. So for me, this being shut on the way back, essentially, by the time I got it up to the top and kept it shut, from that point, there is no chance of me dropping this thing down and releasing it. Any type of release was just going to make this thing go left, 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 which meant that by the time I got down to this position, obviously this bit of extreme, the only chance I had of getting anything going with this was to try and hold the face off and just rotate and hold onto this face for dear life. Now, with wedges, lighter irons, you kind of get away with that. You can kind of manufacture something, you can kind of hold this face off and you can hit something out there. But it really limited me in the rest of my game. Struggled a little bit more with longer irons, and then with driver, it kind of reduced my options. The only chance I really had was kind of holding this thing off, turning hard and hitting little punch cuts out there. I didn't really have the choice of kind of launching anything up high. I didn't really have the chance to move anything from right to left. And it really just limited my options. So I decided to go a little bit on a journey with Jack, and he's helped me a lot to kind of understand this a little bit deeper and make the changes needed to unlock things further along that golf swing for me. Now I'm going to show you today what I did to change this move. And I think if you've ever tried to make a change in your golf swing, you're going to realize this. And I think the backswing is, the same as anything else that's happening at speed. You can feel like you're making good changes, and at slow pace, you can feel like you're getting yourself into a better position. And then as soon as you go and create a full swing, everything is just going to start to go back to what feels natural and what for you was your natural tendency. And the backswing, I think, is something that we feel like we have a little bit more control over than we actually do. We feel like we can put this thing into a position, and then we feel like we can replicate that position when we then pull the trigger. But you'll be amazed that as soon as you add a little bit of speed, pulling away from the ball, your body just reverts back to its natural tendencies. So this is something I seriously struggle with, and it was something that I really had to be diligent on in my practice. So the first tip from today's video is going to be that you're going to have to break down this move. If you are going to try and make a change to your backswing, you're going to have to break this down and do this at slow pace. You're going to have to set up a camera, and you're going to have to watch yourself. You're going to have to do a couple of drills, and then you have to go back and review it and go again. So you have to treat the backswing like the rest of the golf swing, that it is going to change when you get to full speed. So that's point number one. The next thing that I noticed in my journey, and I'm going to show you the drills further on in this video, is I had to break this down into sections. So for me, I kind of felt like the first thing was a grip change. I definitely had to weaken this grip slightly to stop this club face getting a bit too closed. So again, if you're someone who club face is really open, that's something you can have a little check on. So I definitely had to just weaken off the grip slightly, and that helped this get into a slightly better position from the start. But the first stage for me that I really wanted to identify was this initial kind of first 2 foot. So this first 2 foot of which the club travels, for me, I was kind of getting very shut even on this first point. And it also what was happening is this back hip was getting quite kind of, it was almost like the backswing was getting initiated from this hip. So I felt like it was coming this way, everything was wrapping on the inside. So the first thing I had to change was that first little section. And I'll show you the drill that I used to get that thing going in a second. But the first thing I had to do is break it down into sections. So that first bit was section 1 for me. I then went from kind of the first 2 foot up to the point where the club is parallel. That was what I called kind of step 2. And I tried to get that first bit right, then try to get into the second bit, and it's almost like I didn't give myself the chance to do the second bit unless I had the first bit correct. I kind of was quite strict on my practice. The third bit was step 1 to here, step 2 to here. The third bit was taking this thing up to the top. So I'd basically break it down into those 3 steps. So I had grip that was kind of like step 0. I made sure the grip was correct. And then I kind of went step 1 to here, step 2 to here, step 3 up to the top. And what I was doing is basically checking all 3 of those checkpoints every time I did a rehearsal and every time I made a full swing. I was checking those 3 checkpoints. So that's something I'd recommend that you go away and do. You identify what that correct position will be for you. Again, I'm not going to tell you what that correct position is for you specifically, but I will show you what I did. And I really recommend that you find what those 3 points are. And then when you go back and check yourself, you can check on those specific 3 points. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the drills I did for each of those sections, okay? So grip I'm not going to talk about. I made a grip change. Yours is going to be personal. I'm not going to talk about grip. But the first thing I did was for this initial first step, I tried to just get a feeling of what it's like to get this thing working in the correct position. Now for me, this was the tendency of the club head getting too far back behind me. So I had a tendency of the club head wrapping inside, getting behind the hands. You can see how that closes it off. So I really had to make sure I was working on getting this thing to work outside the hands for this first couple of foot. And the drill that I did was having alignment sticks down on the ground, which I'm going to show you now. Okay, so this is the first setup that I had, and this was the first drill that I was doing. So basically have one line where the club head would sit on this line. I would have the second line, which is essentially like hand line or feet line. Obviously, I'd rather it be a little bit further back, but my toes are in the way. And then from this position, all I would do is try and work my hands along this back path while the club works along the second path. So what I'll do is the first couple of foot of just working my hands along one path and the club head along the other. And I would simply just replicate this whenever I had a bit of spare time. So my tendency was for the hip to work back, hands to work out, and club head to wrap in. You can see that would have been the opposite to this position. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to follow the club head along that path while the hands just travel along that path. And for me, this was just allowing this first couple of feet just to be set out. So simple. Didn't even need to hit a golf ball, didn't need to do anything. I could simply just do this in between sessions and was just working on getting the hands to work along the path, get the club head to work along the path, and just trying to get that first couple of feet sorted out. Simply all I did. And what I'll do is I'll then go and work on that, film it, make sure that was happening, and then we'll just try and replicate this every time I had a practice session. So that was working on this kind of like step 1 section. Now the step 2, I always made sure that I took that from step 1 and then took that into step 2. So if you remember, what I was saying was step 2 was getting this club to parallel and looking at the angle of which this was at parallel. So from my old move, this club head would have got wrapped inside the hands and the club face would have been very closed. So I was trying to find a position where the point where club was parallel, club was still outside the hand slightly, and the club head itself was almost pointing towards the sky. That was kind of like the exaggeration that I was trying to get to. I knew that it probably looked something more like this by the time I was actually swinging it, but actually getting into that position as a rehearsal allowed me to kind of feel what this was like. So what I'd then go and do, get back onto my train tracks, I would feel the first bit, and then I'd go first bit into second bit, and I'd just be watching this thing. I'd film it as I go, first bit into second bit, and I'd just rehearse this time and time again. I would get the videos in, I would record myself from down the line in the correct position, and I'd just watch myself go through this position time and time again until it started to feel a little bit more natural. Now what was interesting is even when that started to feel natural, I feel like I was doing it all the time. If I put a golf ball in, I went to go and hit the golf ball, chances are, well, I can say now, it didn't look like that. It looked so much closer to my original before drill version. So it's all about being super diligent to just keep going back and checking, go back to slow speeds. And then when you feel like you're starting to get it, you can start to increase a little bit of speed and then just drop it back again and make sure you're checking in on that. So I was really making sure I was going back to step 1, back to step 2 to really make this as ingrained as possible. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the third stage. So for me, what was happening was I was getting very deep through the body. So I was getting a lot of hip turn, I was getting a lot of shoulder turn, which was dropping my right shoulder blade very, very far back. So I was seeing a position that was very, very rotated through the hip, very rotated through the torso, and this trail side was getting very much behind me. Now, that combined with a club face that was pretty strong, put me in a position of difficulty, because from here, I have to get rid of these angles. I have to spin these angles out at some point because I've created so much turn this way that I have to aggressively turn the other way. And turning aggressively this way with a club face that's shut makes your life very, very difficult, because as you're starting to spin and this thing's shut, I have to eventually either go one way to save it or guide to save it. And at some point, this just creates so much variability. You can start missing it left and missing it right, and it's just making my life a lot harder. So once this first bit had got all kind of organized, once this first phase had got organized and I started getting this club face in a bit better position, I could start working a little bit more on this kind of last section. So 2 points of this that I really wanted to watch out for. First one was once I'd kind of got this first section done, the second thing was by the time I got this thing to the top, I was making sure that the club face was matching my lead arm. So hopefully you can see this from here. I'll do it from this angle. As I was working this back, club face was matching lead arm. So you can see the angle of the club face matching the lead arm. For me before, this thing was closed to this, so I had to try and get this thing open. A couple of ways that I did this. One was feeling a little bit more rotation through the forearms. So feeling like once I'd got it to this position, I was then allowing the forearms to actually roll open. So once it was set, I could allow the forearms to roll open. If I show you this I'll show you this from this angle. Once I was here, I was allowing the forearms to roll to get this thing open. I was doing a lot of exaggerated roll of the forearms. So if I don't roll the forearms and keep it this way, this thing stays shut. Rolling the forearms open to get this thing into a slightly better position. So that was one kind of idea that I was working through, one little drill that Jack gave me, one little feel that Jack gave me to start getting this thing opening up a little bit. The second thing that I tried to do was to stop getting myself as far back and as far deep. And actually this, when I started to feel this, it was something that actually transformed the whole move. So I'll talk you through this. I think this is actually the key move for me that really made a big difference. So if we think about how I would get trapped into a position that's kind of over-rotated, right shoulder working too far back, the opposite to that is the arms being pushed away from the body. So my idea was the opposite to going this way is going this way. So the further away from my body I can keep my arms, the more depth I can keep in these hands, the less that's going to stop this shoulder blade kind of over traveling and making my life a lot harder. So what I started to do is I started to feel like from the start, this thing was getting pushed away from my body. So I was pushing away, keep 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 pushing away, and creating that kind of stretched backswing feel. And then what I realized when I came back into the first drill, it actually makes my life a lot easier with this first drill to also feel like the hands are getting pushed away from the body. And then naturally, things just started to take a little bit of shape, even from taking this kind of like last bit of the move feel into the start. So what that allowed for me to do is it allowed me to then take one feel through the whole move and start to tidy this whole thing up. The reason that's important for me is I noticed that when I was starting doing the first moves, I could drill this, but when it came to actually hitting a golf shot, it became a little bit stuck, it became a little bit yippy. I was struggling to pull the club away. I was having to kind of like hover and then go. And I was really struggling to find like a backswing trigger to go through, because all the previous triggers that I had was pulling this hip back and getting myself into a closed position. So the feeling now of pushing away, creating depth, really allowed me to, one, build a trigger, but two, keep step 1, 2, and 3 pretty consistent with the feel, which really felt like it kind of freed the brain up a little bit for me. So here's a little recap on what I was struggling with and what I did to fix it. So I was definitely struggling with a closed club face on the way back, closed club face all the way through, and a little bit too much depth on the way through, a little bit of an over rotation, a little bit of an overswing, which was causing me to rotate hard on the way down with a closed face, which caused me to have to kind of hold this thing through, which restricted me higher up in the bag, okay? So it was a key move for me to have to change, and the way that I did that was breaking this down into the stages, taking it from stage 1 over this initial couple of foot, stage 2 of taking it up to parallel, and stage 3 of taking it to the top. And then from drilling that consistently, I managed to find a feel that actually tied all 3 of these things together and allowed me to actually take one feel into getting into a much better backswing position. So hopefully you've taken some stuff from this video for your own game. This is a very, very personalized part of the golf swing. I think everyone's backswings, there are some fundamental things that are going to be consistent, but it is very personal to you. It's going to be personal to your mobility level. It's going to be personal to your shot shape. It's going to be personal to your body makeup. So it really is key that you find your personal blueprint for this. And if you want help finding your personal blueprint, below this video, you'll find a link to our coaching where we can help you find your personal blueprint, just like we have done for myself to help me with my game. Assess my body, assess my move, and find a method that works for me and my swing. So if you want to find yours, link is below. You can get in touch with us and we'll help you out. Hopefully you've learned a few things from this video though that will help you understand how we can start to make a change in the backswing, how deliberate we need to be with these motions. I did a lot of work by not actually hitting a golf ball. I actually hit foam balls or hit towels and did things that removed this kind of like the result of the golf swing, which actually made a big difference for me and to be able to make these changes a little bit faster. So hopefully you've got some ideas. If you need any help or need any assistance, drop a comment below this video and we'll get back to you. But until then, guys, I'll see you on the next video.